Hey, Matty.
Yes, ChibiMatty?
I've got good news and great news.
Nice. What's the good news?
I got you a Shizune cosplayer.
Wow, that is great.
Yep, she's on hold on video chat. And, are you ready? And I found 822.
Wait, A22, who wrote Shizune's Path? Are you serious?
Serious as a heart attack. Sorry, Hisao.
That's unbelievable.
Yep, I'm awesome and you always doubt me.
No, I mean it's really unbelievable. I don't believe it.
Here, I've got him on video chat.
It's me, A22.
A22.
Yep.
I am A22.
That's not A22.
It isn't?
I am not A22.
Neither am I.
That's Big Man Tyrone. We literally just had him on the channel. How can you not know this is Big Man Tyrone? Are you insane? We can't tell people we have A22 and then show Big Man Tyrone. As awesome as he is.
Dude, I don't know what A22 looks like. I mean, it's possible that Big Man Tyrone is A22.
Yes.
No.
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 Yeah, oops, my bad. I still have Shizune on the other line.
Shizune, excellent. Put her on quickly, please, for fuck's sake.
Ta-da! Shizune.
All right, looking good. All right. Is she gonna do the line?
And cue Shizune.
Shizune.
Shizune, do the line.
Shizune.
Hello, ShizoonE.
Oh dear Lord.
I don't think she can hear us.
Really? You don't think the deaf girl can hear us? Really? Seriously?
No.
You're gonna hear me roar.
A pensive consideration I had going into Shizune. Shizune's route is a controversial one.
I mean, different people have different views on this, and no one ever seems to agree.
A lot of people hate that path.
Yes.
And unlike Shizune, I myself tend to avoid the conflict and aggressive and sundry characters when going down paths because of how deeply and emotionally involved I get when playing a visual novel. That being said, I was never a fan of Doki Doki Literature Club's Natsuki until I played Purist Mod, where I gained a very great understanding of the inner workings and the struggle of the trope. Is Shizune a sundry? Kinda?
No.
I have no idea. She's definitely going to be a challenge, that much is certain. So although I'm wary of the potential fracas and affrays that are likely to happen on this path with Shizune, that experience from Purist makes me want to meet Shizune, even knowing you have to weather the tough outer shell to get to the yummy inner center with sundries, or just aggressive characters. So yeah, genuinely not knowing what's going to happen or how I'm going to feel about it, or them, gives me trepidation. Only knowing.
There's some shit that goes down. Shizune's path is a trip, man.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Have fun.
Put me into a weird combination of eager, wary, happy, and indecisive. So that's where I was, delving into Katawa Shoujo.
Wait, there are spoilers.
Go play Shizune's route before watching.
There's a link below.
Yes.
Now, I've played this game a lot while traveling the 2 routes that I've completed, and still, Act 1 captures me like it did the very first time. Every time. In the hospital, where my imagination dovetails the story to picture Hisao visiting the burn ward like he talked about in Hanako's route. What if he hadn't run out, and instead found someone in one of those sterile pods, talked to them, read his books to them, or picturing Emi there, indomitably learning how to walk again on new legs, dealing and not dealing with such great loss. And then, once at Yamaku, I've conditioned myself in those previous playthroughs to rush through the parts with Shizune and Misha, to get on Emi and Hanako. That finding myself going very slowly, trying to capture all of the nuances in conversation and subtext, and awash in that familiar foreboding of the things to come with 2 abrasive girls, is new again. As this time, it won't be tolerating the 2 girls. This time, we're joining them. Joining the frickin' student council. And quickly I'm at the point in Katawa Shoujo where I'm skipping things I've already done. The Hanako scenes, the Emi scenes, make me sentimental about the things already shared. And skipping things I haven't done yet, the Lily and Rin scenes, provoke anticipation of future events together. And I realized, I'm in love with this game. This 5 different games that are bundled together through their common universe and settings of character interactions. And then it happens. After a short detour, I find myself in brand new territory of Katawa Shoujo. Sure, I'll come with you. And with that, we leave the classroom. And immediately as we get into the tea house, I'm laughing out loud as Shizune and Misha come at us with one goal, getting us to join the student council. There are some really funny moments in this path. Some of the recruiting efforts are clever, and some a bit worrisome to be honest, and bully on Hisao for resisting. But of course, eventually, we relent, as expected. And then it's, hey look, there's 2 cute girls in my dorm room.
Nice.
I know, right? And look, a choice.
There's not a lot of choices on this route, are there?
No!
And surprisingly, this choice was easy to make. Yep, it was time to show Shizune and Misha that Hisao can resist and stand up for himself. I mean, they talk about how decisive is better than indecisive, and dodge the subject is pretty wishy-washy, right? I figured with Shizune's competitive streak, taking a stand would be a good thing. And then for a bit after this choice, I thought, I think I might have fucked up.
You fucked up.
Yes!
Turns out, I was right. I did fuck up.
Yes.
Bad end. Mistakes were made.
That was fast.
That's what she said.
Which in turn made me realize I just got a dose of main character visual novel syndrome. I figured Hisao would usher them out, close the door, shake his head, have a bit of a laugh, and then meet up with them later. Instead, he goes full scorched earth. Then again, I'm not sure we can call it a bad end, as the day continues just without them, and we find ourselves walking into town with Lily. It almost feels like an escape hatch, one last chance to not be on Shizune's path. Returning to the choice to follow the wishy-washy option surprisingly makes Shizune softer and kinder, and I did not expect this. I'm thinking maybe Shizune being in a position of power at this moment in the conversation, her having a choice of push it or let it be, is enough of a win for her. And that's enough for her right now, because she's playing the long game. Dude, they said earlier that they already know the conditions of the students. As being on the student council, they have access to the records. So they already know about the arrhythmia, and they're just playing another game with you, jerking you around, man. In fact, Shizune demonstrates that she knows later on, when she and Hisao accidentally collide in the student council room.
That escalated quickly.
Alright, settle down, ladies. But I'm also thinking there's more to it than just that. And as we make the final preparations in the student council office for the festival, I begin to wonder if Shizune's distance and aggressively manipulative personality is a factor of her being lonely. Her Katawa is the only one that requires another person, Misha, to be between her and anyone she's trying to effectively communicate with. Lily's blindness doesn't stop her from listening and hearing everyone around her, and being able to talk with them. Hanako's shyness doesn't stop her from contact with the people that she trusts. And Emmy, and even Rin is able to have contact with anyone she comes across if she chooses to. Only Shizune can't directly communicate with anyone. And unless you know sign language, or are willing to write down your entire conversation, the only recourse to direct and intimate contact with Shizune is impossible. Or through Misha. And I wonder if her world is lonely. And maybe she's never been close to anyone because of it. And that made me sad. And the funny thing is I write this script as I'm playing, so I pause the game to write down my thoughts on Shizune's isolation from the world immediately around her, and the task of writing notes to communicate, and right after I wrote that, Hisao and Shizune start writing back and forth on a piece of paper. It's every bit as awkward and ineffective as imagined, and of course is a great catalyst to get Hisao to start learning sign language. But more importantly, this scene is one of the biggest reveals of the path, hidden in plain sight, and I'm going to come back to it. Also, as someone who isn't deaf and doesn't know sign language, I hadn't considered the challenge of trying to use your hands for tasks, like writing or hammering a stall together or eating, and then having to stop to use your hands to communicate. And once again, Katawa Shoujo teaches me something about myself, something that I didn't know that I didn't know, and I found that writing to be excellent. Ironically, the awkward times with Shizune, when we would just start talking at her normally, and of course she couldn't hear it, and Shizune would sign at Hisao, and we couldn't understand her, I found those to be really sweet, where even though there wasn't communication, there was still a connection, and in a weird, unexpected way, of becoming comfortable together. Now, I admit, this route can be challenging. At times it feels like Misha's parfait, mixed together to where I'm not sure what the individual flavors and layers are supposed to taste like. Hisao isn't that sharp, and at times that made things vague. I think I missed some pretty important plot connections because of it. But I did figure out pretty early on you have to look at dealing with Shizune through Hisao's eyes, and the relationship as a game of cat and mouse, of feints and ambushes, but mostly as a game. And most importantly, this path is a triangle.
Yes.
It's called Shizune's Path, but only because calling it Shizune's, Hisao's, and Misha's Path would be a shitty title. But that's really what it is. It's very complex, not spoon-fed to us, and often shifts gears very quickly. And I'm gonna ask you to work with me here, because although there is stuff I don't like, there's some really excellent stuff here too. So here we go. Shizune's flirting comes in the form of tricks and treats. Competition and challenges are her temptations. And the big part of the game for Hisao is figuring out the rules of each particular competition. Rules that Shizune makes up right on the spot, and is a master at. And Hisao in this route is more competitive and a little rebellious, which is why he takes the bait and resists and teases Shizune, all the while being drawn closer to her like a moth to flame. which I can't help but to think is her plan all along. And you cannot ignore Misha as just an ancillary character or convention to communicate through. Understanding that this really is a triangle is crucial. The hardest part for me personally was
1.
often having no idea if Misha was talking to us or if Misha was translating for Shizune. And
2.
trying to latch onto both of their energies that often come at you simultaneously. The manic, untamed, overbearing, flirty Misha, and the stoic and calculated schemes and petulance of Shizune. Sorry, Misha, fractious, impatient, aggressive, basically Shizune. The juxtaposition of these two personalities at times made me want to take the easy observation that they're polar opposites, which was unfair on my part, as like all characters in Katawa Shoujo, Shizune and Misha are complex and nuanced personalities. Misha must be more than just a Genki girl. Her bubbly, dear-deary nature and endless enjoyment of everything feels as there's something she hides from everyone, including herself, only revealing hints of a more sensitive Misha from time to time, with the occasional out-of-character comment or reaction. Oh, and blonde Misha? Big fan. Just as Shizune readily admitting that she's the reason we stayed late, and treating Misha and Hisao to dinner, and the festival scenes with the doll, these are moments I realize Shizune simply must be more than just an indomitable persona. There is humility. Yes, she's intrigued by a challenge, any challenge, but not as an absolute. And more on this in a bit. So, is Shizune a tsundere?
No.
The tsundere acts and reacts aggressively and abrasively because it's a defense mechanism to hide insecurity. Natsuki is very insecure inside. She'll never acknowledge it, but she knows it's there. Shizune is constantly mired in the picayune of every bit of mundanity, and since she can't hear subtle cues of spoken language, antagonizing people to gauge their reactions, so she knows their feelings, without confusion.
Not in the slightest is she a tsundere. Went out of the way to make a headstrong female character. Task-focused, blunt, and ambitious.
Well, she may not be a tsundere, but she does have that push-pull and abrasive aspect of one. Especially coupled with, often she can't come out and say her true feelings.
Literally.
Yeah, but also figuratively. She hides her feelings. She intentionally draws people to her, wanting them excited and involved in her grandiose plans. But once they're interested and excited, she then keeps them at a distance. But yes, Shizune is not insecure. Not in a manner that's the impetus for her personality quirks. Her aggression and abrasiveness come from her determination and competitive drive instead. Which also happen to be a couple of the things I don't like about Shizune. Her dogmatic personality often results in zero-sum games, due to the hard feelings she causes with this way of dealing with people. Her need to go after Lily at every encounter feels pathological. And the way she goes after Hanako when she comes looking for how to get a replacement ID card and they play chess has an almost casual cruelty. Neither it's the only time Lily shows any passion, explanation as to why she goes after Lily, nor the analytical dissection of why of Hanako's interest in chess justified, to me, the douchebaggery.
Neither of them got over the major follow on how the student council should be run. Lily is still a class rep, so Shizune still has to deal with her. In short, Shizune is pushy, Lily's lazy, and both are incredibly stubborn.
Okay, but still, I do think if Shizune was cordial to Lily, Lily would be happy to be pleasant. They managed to end up having a decent time fishing, albeit helped by Hisao's creative interpretation, and actually I'm really curious how that dinner turned out. But Shizune's quality to enjoy the verbal jousting here is not the most admirable feature, especially with Hanako. I mean, you sneeze and Hanako loses her composure. She's so socially fragile that Shizune's deconstruction of her was an effortless abusiveness seemingly for sport. Shizune figured Hanako out, that chess is reminiscent of her past, most likely memories of her family. Knowing the emotional attachment, she used that to unnerve her, and then not just win the game, but defeat her thoroughly. A rout. This mysterious introvert loner shares a cherished interest of hers with them, and it felt like witnessing the beating of a small child, like hunting turtles with a sledgehammer. Casualty? Potentially souring Hanako's association with chess and the correlated memories she has. Now, a part of my feelings here could be due to the many times playing the Hanako path prior to playing any others, and the lingering enjoyment of Hanako and Lily's company.
Yep.
But Shizune often just argues for the sake of arguing, as a game. But mostly, as strategic, crafty, and manipulative as Shizune is, the end state of both, dueling with Lily and humiliating Hanako, don't seem to be net positives for Shizune. So why? What does she achieve? Is this the ends justify the means regardless of the ends or casualties? The friend of my enemy is my enemy and getting at Lily by proxy? Simply aspects of her obstinacy? Boredom? Is that really who she is? I didn't see her as that shallow or sadistic. And if she isn't, then as an audience, I need more here. Look, I'm not suggesting Shizune, Misha, and Lily and Hanako all become best pals and start hanging out together, having dinner together, sitting on the bed reading together, holding hands, maybe brushing each other's hair at a slumber party, looking deeply into each other's eyes, slowly and softly leaning closer, breath deep with nervous excitement.
That was hot.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I was going with this.
Who cares? Just keep going.
Yeah, don't stop.
So much of the mystery of Shizune's personality and her growth happened at the very end, where she acknowledges she goes too far. She could have seen Hanako's passion for chess and tested her convictions in a way that wasn't so brutal. Or better, been brutal, and then been mad at herself for doing it, reflective of her need to win at all costs. I think it would have been nice to have her have paused after Hanako runs out, have a bit of a moment right after she reveals her brilliance as a statistician, and have Hisao call her out, challenge her to turn that strategic lens back on herself, and have her show some growth at that moment, even if it's just a moment of self-doubt that quickly erodes. It would give the audience an insight into that deeper and more complex Shizune. It would also highlight Shizune being comfortable enough with Hisao to let her guard down. And then later we could find out Shizune replaced Hanako's ID card, and even delivered it to her personally. More of the magnanimous in victory, more benevolence from the dictator, who always has to be better at everything than anyone else. Because Shizune is nuanced, and I wanted to observe more of it. As not clearly seeing her growth until the very end, at times made her feel callous, and difficult in an almost insurmountable way. So, our paranoia. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Shizune continuously demonstrates that she is a master at manipulation, able to think 3 or 4 steps ahead. In the Shanghai scene, when she makes the vague wager and we both rush out, in the streets, she starts handing us notes. We never saw her write these notes. That means she had a pocket full of notes prepared, long before even asking us to go to the Shanghai. That means she already had this all planned out, that we would most likely decline wanting to go to the festival with her, and we were deliberately led along this convoluted, elaborate scheme, all so she could rope us into this game. Wow. Really impressive subterfuge on Shizune's part. And my paranoia went crazy. There is no literature or art without paranoia. Probably there wouldn't even be civilization. Paranoia is the attempt to make sense of what doesn't. Don't be a little paranoid. Be a lot paranoid! Paranoia means you have the facts. And then we get to the Tanabata festival. The entire mood of the game changed for me. It felt like time slowed down. Much like the earlier moments when Hisao talks and Shizune signs and the atmosphere is more carefree. This time with her was pleasant, and the connection felt solid. Even the disagreement over the flavor of snow cones was more playful banter, and less big-stakes battle of wills. It was really nice. And something about seeing her in the yukata made me smile this really big dumb smile. All my trepidation and wariness dissolved. I don't know why. Build up to the moment? Anticipation for a time together like this? Intimacy? Intimacy. The Shizune route does seem to stray the farthest from the core Katawa Shoujo universe, or after speaking with CplCrud and Hive, maybe the least reined back in.
A22 went in a direction with Shizune's path that is, it's impressive.
And I think what happened there was that a lot of the parts that were probably a bit too divergent from the rest of the game were cut out, but then left in the existing part, and then bits were backfilled in there.
It has some of the most eccentric characters assembled in one place. I will say there are some curious wardrobe choices, but then again I'm not one to judge. I spent an entire summer wearing a sarong, much to the dismay of my friends. Don't judge me. I identify as somebody fashionable. So let that freak flag fly, Hideaki. Fuck the haters. Besides, I think I have Jigoro's shirt.
Jigoro.
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 Hope that helps.
No, that's awesome. I was going to start calling him J Money.
No.
I'm glad Hisao is as uncomfortable in Jigoro's presence as I am, because at least I have a barometer to gauge from. Other times in the route, I'm not sure. Yeah, this guy's an asshat. That was immediately apparent in that he doesn't like sweater vests. Douchebag. Sweater vests rule.
Why does he have a sword?
Explaining his behavior as kind of a joke was an interesting aspect of his personality and made me look at him as more than just a hate sink. His mind game to see how you react under pressure, to measure you, as well as all the physical games in the house, go a long way to explaining aspects of Shizune's personality, and also aspects of her brother's individuality. But again, Jigoro's games feel very zero-sum. Sure, you get a reaction and gauge somebody's character by verbally unbalancing them, but good luck ever getting anyone to want to spend time with you, or trusting you. And the irony is, Shizune avoids her dad because of it, but uses a version of this tactic to understand people she communicates with, to understand their feelings without confusion.
Seriously, why does he have a sword?
Character prop to reinforce his eccentricity.
It's weird.
What? No way, dude. Jigoro's awesome. A man's man. No one tells Jigoro what to do, except maybe Jigoro. And even then, Jigoro probably wouldn't even listen. Not even to Jigoro. There's a lot of Kenji in this path. You're a lot of Kenji in this path! I don't know what that means. But speaking of Kenji, suddenly the voice of reason? The scene where he's talking about the letter from Iwanako? Hisao is convinced that she doesn't want him to write her back. But Kenji sees it could be a gradual thing for her, and maybe she's too shy to call you. I wanted to high-five the crazy bastard. Don't touch me. Yeah, of course Hisao's not going to have any kind of Iwanako path, but that moment again got my imagination juiced. Seeing Hisao reaching out to Iwanako with a letter, and then who knows, right? The distant future is a story yet to be written, after all. That Iwanako moment, instigated by Kenji, was something that hasn't happened to me on any of the previous paths. And Kenji's confession about missing his ex-girlfriend pulled me even deeper into that rich momentary fantasy. Back to Mr. Shizune's dad. The first dad scene establishes much about Shizune's history, what she dealt with growing up in the familial relationship. It's pretty uncomfortable, and kudos to Misha for punching back at Mr. Shizune's dad for not remembering her name, and also saving us from any more of it. I didn't dislike the banter in the garden in the second Jigoro scene. It's actually enjoyable and has some really funny moments, and allows Hisao and Shizune to sneak off, and finally have some girlfriend-boyfriend time. The third dad scene was the most uncomfortable, but also the most important. Points are scored on both sides, with both focusing on each other's hypocrisies, and considerations towards some core beliefs. Hisao's defending of Shizune's involvement with the student council, mentioning how close the school is for Jigoro to come visit, and Jigoro's highlighting Hisao's lack of focus towards his future, and the fact that he doesn't contact his own parents like he should.
Hello?
Hey, Mom.
Hi, Matty.
The fourth and final Jigoro scene is at the school, when Dad and Hideaki visit Shizune. On my first playthrough of this route, 2 minutes with Jigoro was enough. I wanted to press that spacebar as quickly as I could to get through the scenes with him. On subsequent playthroughs, it wasn't as bad. In fact, the character grew on me a little bit. Very little bit. Like a wart, mostly. But let me come back to this, as now we gotta talk about the lemons. Well, you know what I mean. I'm always wary of lewd in visual novels, as it's very easy to sully the tender connections and deep aspects of the storyline with smut. Not that there's anything wrong with smut, a time and a place for everything. But sometimes the story and characters don't build up to it plausibly, and it feels forced, breaking immersion and leaving the reader disheartened that their best girl is defiled, or just that the lust was a lot more than the audience or the characters seemed ready for. Once again, the lewd aspects of Katawa Shoujo are presented in a manner that was very respectful, especially the first, which visually is a great example of less is more, and the kink aspect adds instead of detracts. And other than a few crude lines...
And then I slammed it in, and then I pulled it out, and then I slammed it in again.
Yeah, other than that, the scene was very nicely polished. So we finally consummated the boyfriend-girlfriend thing with Shizune, and then... Yeah, so there doesn't seem to be a lot of one-on-one time with Shizune. And so far, the few times we are together, just the two of us, the time isn't very intimate. It's understandable with her personality and the version of Hisao, but it often leaves scenes feeling kind of empty. Neither of them really seem to have any urgency to spend time together, at least that doesn't involve student council work, other than when they enjoy both festivals together. There is one time when Shizune says she wants to go on a date, and they don't. And then Shizune wants to take Hisao to the Shanghai, which easily could have been a date, and Hisao turns it down. What the fuck? Now, right before Hisao and Shizune consummate their relationship, Misha radically changes her appearance, losing the signature drills. At first, this seemed like a change for the sake of change. However, like a lot in this route, there's a tremendous amount of subtext and implication, and Misha's obvious exterior change harbingers an inner change as well. Hisao literally has a broken heart.
Literally.
Misha's heart is also broken. She's in love with Shizune, and has been for a while. Shizune knows this, but has no interest in a relationship with Misha beyond friendship. And Hisao and Shizune grow closer. It gets harder for Misha, as in any love triangle, someone is always left out. And in many ways, Misha feels like she's being replaced by Hisao. It's painful for her. And the only person she's really comfortable to confide in is her rival, Hisao. Okay, Shizune is a tremendous amount of work to deal with at times. And even though the relationship hasn't shown a lot of depth or passion, other than the one time at this point in the story, and throughout the whole route, Misha has been the sweetest thing I've encountered in quite a while. Well, it's impossible not to come across some spoilers while being involved in the Katawa Shoujo communities. And although I don't know exactly what happens if you comfort Misha, this isn't her path, so no good can come from comforting Misha. As tempting as it is.
Comfort Misha. Go on. Don't be a pussy.
Look how cute she is. I vote plow. No.
Dude.
No. I got nothing. I think you should listen to them. I mean, I could save my game.
Misha is a great kisser.
Wait, what?
I have questions.
No, I can't. Look, as much as I deliberated this choice, yep, I got stuck on it. I did resist the temptation to comfort her. Even without the spoiler. Come on, we have a girlfriend for fuck's sake. Besides, Hisao's a decent guy with a good heart. Well, figuratively. His heart is literally borked.
Literally.
But good guys don't pork their girlfriend's bestie. It ain't good mojo.
I don't know. It seems to work out well in all the porn you watch.
Well, that is true. No. Must resist.
Misha's part of the blame. Did try to ruin her best friend's relationship by sleeping with Hisao. It's not outright stated that's the reason why she wanted to sleep with him. Becomes obvious through the route. Like, excuses not to teach Hisao sign language at Shizune's house. Deep down, she saw him as competition. Why else would you sleep with your best friend's boyfriend?
Interesting. This would explain quite a bit regarding Misha's motivation and also clarify
Misha's a lesbian. She's not bi.
as to why she tries to bed Hisao.
Yes.
Yeah, in the bad end, it wasn't clear to me if Shizune knew they cheated.
In the beta, Shizune knew they were cheating because she could lip read. That was half scrapped in the final, and it ends up implied.
Reading lips would explain how Shizune and her dad communicate while at Yamaku.
Oh, wait. If she could lip read, then she understood all the stuff that Hisao said to her early on when he thought she couldn't understand him, and he was saying all that gushy stuff? That's funny. I think it's funny. Is that funny?
Shizune reads lips, except when she doesn't. But I digress. Let me come back to this. The most effective way Shizune found to communicate and connect with people, unambiguously and with clarity, was to challenge people. Get them to be passionate. Get them to push back. To reinforce their opinions. As a harsh connection is better than no connection. And she goes after Lily so often and so hard because Lily pushes back. Most people don't. Lily's a worthy opponent. A frenemy. Her standing firm and giving back is something Shizune respects. And Shizune's confession regarding her own personality, the candid and simple honesty of it, made me feel for her. I actually felt a little guilty on the hard feelings I sometimes had about her, as she really didn't have a choice if she wanted to connect to anyone besides Misha. Don't get me wrong, her behavior is often still fuckery. The aggravation she causes absolutely could have been tempered, more than just with the bubblegum filter of Misha, and Shizune knows this. Now, this route does seem a bit rougher than the others, a bit more vague and less polished. And there were some places that made me stop and question the continuity. The school's at a standstill during festival time, but Misha's falling behind in classes. We get to the festival late in the day, and Misha mentions not all the booths are set up, immediately followed by, they're going to sell out at the takoyaki. Most egregiously is when Shizune is describing her passion and ambition, and uses, you know when you hear a song, and you want to become a musician? Which is very relatable, but Shizune's never heard a song. She's never heard anything. She can't hear.
What?
She can't hear.
Literally.
Sure, you could easily make a case that somebody deaf can still feel vibrations from a song with a heavy rhythm section, but I think you're asking a lot from an audience to thread that together. It feels like there's a few times that happens in the path. Vague implications requiring the audience to speculate with little evidence, and then no clear payoff of a eureka later. I still don't know what Misha was trying to get Hisao to say in Parfait, at the end of the guided tour where he takes her around the school. She kept asking, why are you doing this? What else? I want to know. And then the bell rings ending the teaser, and it's never revisited or revealed. Also, what is Shizune's secret? That Misha knows and will tell us later, then doesn't. I think it's that she wants to do things to make people happy, or have more people to rely on, or making something great that people will remember, but I'm not 100% sure. But there were other inconsistencies that are actually deep insight into Shizune's character, just subtle. Like, Shizune never runs, except when she does. Shizune is pretty adamant about the fact she doesn't throw things, except when she does. In the scene right before this one, she adroitly tosses the empty box of tacks into the garbage can. So she does throw, quite well actually. And it's pretty uncharacteristic that she backs down from a challenge, and doesn't turn the festival game into a contest between her and Hisao. I mean, she's happy to turn fishing into an epic team battle royale. So why does she tell Hisao she doesn't throw things, when she does? The scene with Hisao's mortality is a big key to why. At the very same festival, he's trying to win that second doll, and he realizes the fatigue from his condition. Which reminds us of the reality of his circumstance, that life is delicate and often cut short. It's quite a sobering moment in the midst of the enjoyable festival. Shizune throws things. She's saying she doesn't to try to get Hisao involved, to try to get him to enjoy himself at the festival, since he worked to help make it happen. She even vaguely mentions it later when she says, you're looking out for me, I have to look out for you. And more overtly a few times. It wouldn't make sense for you to clean up after having such a good time. As well as directly in the scene when they're writing back and forth. You were depressed, so I did this to make you happy, and not lonely. Hisao is depressed, and Shizune puts aside her dominant personality for Hisao, so he can feel involved. But since Hisao ignores it entirely, not connecting it for the audience, it's an inconsistency and it feels awkward.
This is awkward.
Literally.
Wow, Matty, this is a long video. Not that I like listening or anything. Anyway, here's a quick intermission.
Triangle honesty. Let me know the truth. Let me know the truth. I'm dumb, she's a
lesbian. She's not
lesbian. I thought I found the one.
And now the end of the video. Baka.
Okay, you've hung with me this far. Here's the payoff. Here's why this path is worthwhile. Shizune's not a tsundere, but the path sure is, and you have to weather its hard outer coating to get to the yummy inner goodness. To fully appreciate the root, to really acknowledge Shizune's character and what A22 did, and to understand why you should like her, first you have to play through it so that you get to Shizune's reveal at the end, where she explains herself and admits her flaws and failings. It's not till then that you see her character's journey. You finally understand her drives, and the simple point-blank style of dealing with things and people. Shizune's like an alien in the way that she perceives the world. It's different than the way we perceive the world.
Yes!
But she's also just a girl, playful, mischievous, and excitable. And her motivation to just want to make people happy, people she can't even effectively connect with. Then you get to understand her character. And then you play the route a second time, and you look at everything that Hisao says and does, and you see Hisao is what triggers everything Shizune does in this route. She sees this guy who's depressed and alone. She feels bad for him in his circumstance. She knows what it's like to be like that. And so she brings Hisao into the student council to give him purpose. And she playfully tricks him into doing the work for the festival, because if she didn't, she knows he'd just be sitting in his room moping. And then at the festival, she shows him what he helped create. A great event for the whole school. Hoping that if Hisao enjoys himself, maybe he'll appreciate what everyone else here is grateful for. Shizune criticized Lily for the time she was on the student council. She would devote herself entirely to a friend that was having a problem. And then Shizune does the exact same thing for Hisao. In fact, she did the exact same thing with Misha when she first came to the school. Grabbed the lonely girl who expected everyone to hate her, got her involved, and made a best friend. And seeing this, Shizune, it turns out, is incredibly selfless in her selfishness. Her motivation is to make people happy and connect in the only way she can. My third playthrough, I really was attentive on Misha, and that's when her personality became focused, and I understood her. Shizune is pretty much a nightmare to deal with for everyone around her, students and staff. But Misha's just the interpreter. You can't get mad at the interpreter, especially if the interpreter has a totally different attitude than the nightmare, right? See, Misha's the greatest enabler, but she totally doesn't have a choice, because if she wasn't kind of flaky and bubbly, she'd be the one receiving all of the teachers' and students' wrath at Shizune. Her personality is a firewall that isolates her from the anger that Shizune causes people. You can't really blame Misha for just doing her job. Add to that her unrequited affection towards her best friend, Shizune, and then seeing Hisao and Shizune become closer in the way she's wanted this whole time. You start to appreciate her neglect. Being able to see each character clearly and independently, and then seeing how very well the three connect to create this story, you can then appreciate what A22 did with the path.
A lot is intentionally left to the imagination. It's intended.
In that case, I think the story would have been better suited for film, where the live actors can help lead the audience with the unspoken and lingering subtextual, much greater than static sprites can. But this isn't a film, it's a visual novel. And I consider myself a pretty observant audience, and I missed a lot, because Hisao is not that observant, and that's where I ran into the most trouble. One of my script team members asked me if I was to rewrite the path, what changes I would make. All I could think is, what kind of arrogant dick would have the audacity to suggest rewrites from this acclaimed and classic visual novel? Someone would seriously have to have a bloated ego and pluck beyond the pale. So here we go. The exploration of Shizune, Misha, and Hisao's story arcs and character development were actually really well conceived, and honestly I think it works. It's just buried by the audience's expectations of a relationship with Shizune, because there really isn't a lot of romance in this romance route, other than the lewd times. They're really boyfriend and girlfriend in name only, and that made the few intimate moments feel thin. From my Western perspective, Shizune felt more like friends with benefits. And that caused my biggest nitpick break in continuity. At the end, Hisao tells Shizune, "I love you," which Shizune completely ignores.
This is awkward.
Yeah, but not really, as Hisao ignores that she ignored it. I mean, that part was awkward for the audience, but not for any of the characters, which is what made it feel awkward and detached. Without the formality of the girlfriend-boyfriend relationship, and just friends that fuck, well, then there's no reason not to comfort Misha.
Misha is a great kisser.
I still have questions.
So you have to have it. So have it. A few more non-intimate H-scene moments, conversations and flirtation between Shizune and Hisao. Make them clumsy, just tender, attempts to make a deeper connection. And Misha's progressively reacting to those moments to fill the gaps for the audience and confirm the relationship and the triangle. Shizune likes to hold hands, but that can get in the way of conversation, so a scene sitting across from each other, playing footsie, or touching knees while signing would have been very helpful in getting that connection. Shizune making it a game as Hisao is having trouble signing and focusing on the footsie at the same time, and then Misha suddenly having to leave. 2. Less Jigoro and Hideaki. Jigoro is important to the story, but the first two scenes could have been merged together, so we have Hideaki interjecting and Hisao defending Shizune's work in the student council. That way his influence on Shizune is established, but not distracting to the storyline with the extra padding. The fourth scene with Dad at Yamaku is good because it shows he cares about his family. He just doesn't know how to show it. I mean, he comes all the way to Yamaku for a very short conversation. That's a big deal. 3. Hisao reveals his greatest struggle to come to terms with, his heart, to Hanako and Emi in their paths. I don't know yet if he reveals it to Lily on her path, but Lily knows about it in Hanako's path. And we know Rin knows about it because of their first encounter in the art room. And she's there in Waylay when the nurse mentions it. Although she doesn't really seem to care, they do have a moment where he acknowledges it. But here, Hisao has a big choice. One of the few choices on the path. All parties decide when he's ready he'll share. And throughout the path, it haunts. We keep building up to it. And then it never happens. There's never that moment where he confesses his condition with Shizune, or even Misha. And not having that moment felt as an audience like a part of Hisao was left undone. Bottom line, trim some fluff, more moments of the triangle, and more earlier appreciation of the Shiz.
I think A22 is a really good dialogue writer, and he's got a really good grip of characters and was really good at getting that motivation, especially with a character that literally can't talk, rather than having them pull themselves through the plot or having the plot drive them forward.
I think he kind of pulled it off pretty well. It's not perfect, but none of the paths are perfect.
Even if Shizune's not your best girl, you'll see why she is to others.
Yes!
With the goodbyes, it felt like this path was meant to be followed last, after all of the other paths. It's a very nice wrap-up, wistful and melancholy. And it made me wonder if after all the other paths are completed, is there an unlockable goodbye ending? I guess we'll find out pretty soon.
Goodbye, ShizoonE!
She's a lesbian.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to me, Big Man Tyrone.
I make this look good.
That's funny. I think it's funny. Is that funny?